So we have a special guest today, and we are teaching on how to own your financial wealth regardless of market conditions. You know, here on the Own It Show, our job is to inspire conscious entrepreneurs and help uncommon knowledge become common. And so we know financial education is not part of the educational system. And these are simple things that we just don't know. We don't know. So we brought on a special financial specialist and real estate investor, and he is also a member of the Bank on Yourself organization and helps business owners, real estate investors, and full-time employees grow safe and predictable wealth regardless of the market conditions. So welcome, Sarry, today. Thank you so much for joining us. Please introduce yourself and let everyone know who you are, what you do, who you help,
Hi.
how you help them.
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm glad to be here, glad to speak to you and the audience today. So, as you mentioned, I'm a financial specialist. I'm from Chicago, Illinois, as we talked about before recording. Born and raised here in Chicago, and I run a company called Financial Asset Protection. So, we're a full service financial services firm. We help business owners, individuals, full time employees grow their money, figure out ways of getting out of debt, kind of whatever clients need help with financially, we have some sort of solution for them. So that's our niche, that's our specialty. I've been in this space for about 7 years now. I love it. It's also led to the podcast called Thinking Like a Bank podcast. And as you could probably imagine, the podcast is about how to think like a bank. We bring on accountants, lawyers, bankers, all types of professionals who share almost like secret strategies as to what a bank would do with their finances and how anybody could apply those. You don't have to be in the banking industry. You just have to listen to this podcast and podcasts like these to learn some of the tricks and strategies that banks use that you can apply in your own life. So glad to be here and glad to talk about some financial or banking strategies.
I love that. And guys, the link is below. So make sure you check out the website and you check out that podcast, because this is uncommon knowledge that we want to share with you so you can truly create financial wealth and actually manage it so that your money can work for you and you can become your own banker.
Mm-hmm.
So, what has been your entrepreneur journey? So let's start with that. We really want to help entrepreneurs to stay
Yeah.
on the journey and perhaps get started. So just a little bit about how you got started and what would be your advice for entrepreneurs out there today.
Yeah, like many other entrepreneurs, it's been a rough journey, right? It hasn't been like a clear path where it's like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur today and I'm going to do these three things and become a successful entrepreneur. It's more like I'm going to do these 100 things and then maybe, it will all come together. But I guess the advice I have is over time things do work in your favor. You just have to give them time. Even if things don't work out initially, they somehow will lead you to a path that will work out, or you have to reposition into something that will work. I started my entrepreneurial path, luckily, when I started my professional, like my first real job was being an entrepreneur, about 7 years ago. So I got into the professional world as an entrepreneur, and I had to do like side jobs, like consulting roles throughout the last 7 years. So that way I could, because I wasn't making money, right, as an entrepreneur. So I had to kind of figure out like different ways of keeping my business, keeping my clients, and also bringing in other sources of income. So that's something too. I if you have to do that, you have to do that, right? There's no way around it. I didn't want to just build a business and then give it up to go get a job. I want to kind of keep both going. Now it's just 100% entrepreneurship. So my advice is, be friendly with failure, right? Failure doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It means that you need to reposition, you need to try again. And this is, I think, why a lot of people don't make it as entrepreneurs, is because they look at it as like a report card where it's like, what was my grade this time? And it was, failure. And then they have to do something else. No, I don't necessarily look at it from that perspective. I look at it as it doesn't work. It didn't work right now, but how can we make it work? How can we position? Even importantly, what did we learn from that failure? That's really essential too. This is how you hear about stories of like large companies who, their initial role was to make computers, and then throughout that journey, they ended up being the number one camera company in the world, or something like that. Not a specific example, but something like that, where their failure led them to something completely different that was much better than their initial goal.
So I absolutely love that. We all know the story of GoPro. So he actually, it was his $1 million fail, right? He had a business, it didn't work. He went and had a pity party, took himself to the beach, hung out there, and then
Yeah.
he had the GoPro idea, which we all know is like the
Yeah.
next $1 billion investment. So
Yeah.
failure is feedback. So no
Yes.
matter what it is, we have to pivot. And I love that you said that, because I have been an entrepreneur for over 11 years. And on the first 9 years of my journey, I had contracts. One, to gain experience, to help, with the financial management of being an entrepreneur in the get-go, but also really helped me gain experience through these contracts to help me then make improvements and see how I wanted to run my company. So definitely in the beginning, we know we must be flexible. We take failure as feedback, and we do whatever it takes now, and get uncomfortable now, so that we can live a life of comfort later, and live a life later that many will never get an opportunity to, because we chose to just pivot and figure out the ways that it works. So I absolutely love that advice. So good. And next time you think you failed, just remember, go pro. Your next $1 million idea is around the corner.
I couldn't agree more.
I love it. So you have some amazing tips and tricks for us today to help people truly own their financial management and wealth, and we'll dive into those.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I've done a lot of financial analysis meetings with clients. This is where we go through like financial analysis meetings, right? It's the first step. It's the first step, and it's the most important step in working with clients. We can't just make recommendations and say invest in this stock or buy real estate. We have to understand the client situation, right? Where they're currently at financially, where they want to go, what their short-term goals are, long-term goals, what are some obstacles they face, their current financial situation, right? Like, do they have any retirement accounts? Do they have, how much liquidity do they have? All these things matter a lot, because it judges it judges the recommendation, right? The more accurate information we have, the better the recommendation is. It has to be suitable for the client. And I could tell you about 90% of the time, literally 90% of the time, we go through those financial analysis meetings. Clients have no idea how much they have in their bank account, how much debt they have, how much the value of their house is, how much is in the retirement accounts, their brokerage accounts, their crypto accounts. It's all kind of like overwhelming. And for the first time, we're putting it all together and putting the numbers together to come up with the balance sheet and the cash flow statement. So my advice to you is, become very aware of that. Become very aware of your numbers. I personally, I could be biased because I do this for a living, but I track this every day. So every day I allocate about 10 minutes a day, 5 days, 5 to 6 days a week, depending on the weekends if I do this. But for the most part, at least 5 days a week, I log into all my accounts, and I have like a Google Sheet tracker, and I track how much I have in like my checking, savings, brokerage account, other places, and how much my debt is as of that day. So like if I have credit cards or whatever the case is for that debt as of that day. And then now what happens is that it creates like a game now, where it's like you have points, like on the one side it's good, right? This is the cash you have, this is your income, and then you have the debts, and then you want to like lower the debts, you want to increase your assets, you want to increase your income. If you're self-employed, you have control over that, right? Of increasing your income. So I started to do that, and it started to change a lot of things now, because it added more meaning to money now, because money is just like, it comes and goes, right? For most of it, it just comes and goes. But when we track it and we give it duties and goals, it changes a lot of the way now. It adds more value to your money. Also, it helps you, to the second point, become more financially self-aware. You understand more about your habits. Are you a spender? Are you a saver? What do you value? Like, do you value material things or experiences or both? Or it teaches you more about yourself. A lot of accountants and financial specialists say that you could tell a lot about a person by their numbers, by their spending habits, their saving habits. It tells a kind of a story of a person's behavior. So it's important for you to understand your own behavior. So those are two things: become financially self-aware and really drill down and understand your numbers, your cash flow, the amount of money you have, the liquidity you have, and the debts you have.
So I just want to add to that. Everyone heard that the first way to achieve your goal is to take an inventory of your current state. So if you're in any of our programs, you know, how do we do our goal setting is we start with current state and future state. So you actually have to take an evaluation. And if we truly want to have wealth growth, we actually have to build a relationship with our wealth. So I hear that you build that relationship via tracking and how
Yeah.
important that is. And in our community, we all use habit trackers because Robert Kiyosaki says, whatever you track improves. And we know
Yes.
that wherever our energy is and our focus is, it grows.
Mhm.
So I have a task for you. You come on the show. Do you have a template? Is that a lead magnet that you use, which is an example tracker that you have?
Yeah, I have a template and I have a video of how to use the template. There's so much, as we're close to the end of 2022, there's so much software out there, right? There are tools and I kind of like some of them, but I just like to just use a regular Google sheet that I can kind of just control on my own terms without having to go through a software to do it all. And it doesn't have to be too complicated, right? You don't have to spend hours learning how it works. It's just you're taking a snapshot of every day of your income and your expenses, and not expenses more so, but your debts and your assets every day, and it helps. You're tracking it and you're able to improve it upon time.
And do you recommend that people actually go through their bank statement and evaluate where they are spending their money so that they can see profit leaks, and perhaps opportunities where they could spend their money more wisely?
At 100%, yeah. There's no way. I think there's no way to become wealthy than without being able to really have a tight grip on your finances. Like you have to like you always hear like wealthy people are like they're really good at understanding where their money goes, and there's never really like extra money. Like each dollar has its own duty. So the bare minimums are met, and then whatever is left over, only a certain percentage is like actually spent. The rest of it is invested and grown in different areas. And one thing that like I've been doing as well as like my clients is we've been putting ourselves in a situation where we take kind of the money out of our control. So obviously you have to pay your bills, you have to pay your necessities, but like this is what got me into real estate investing. I like real estate investing because of the potential to grow the money, but I like it even more because it's somewhat illiquid. Usually illiquid is usually a bad term in financial planning. It means that you can't access the money. But I also think it's a good term too, because as humans, we're very tempted with the amount of money we have. So if we can figure out a habit to take the money we're making, allocate it to our bills, pay our bills, take a small amount, put that towards liquid cash savings, and then the rest or whatever is left into illiquid investments that we cannot readily turn into cash, I think that'll improve your financial situation because you're taking away that temptation of spending that money. A lot of people I know don't have their wealth sitting in a checking account with access via their debit card, right? Because you spend more money that way. But if you have that money growing in different places that you can't touch, and every time you look at your checking account and it's only like $2,000, you're like, oh my God, I feel so broke. Even though you're not, even though you have money in different places. I've been becoming a fan of those types of habits and behaviors.
Absolutely. And I love it. It was Grant Cardone's wife that said the first investment is in yourself. And then
Uh-huh.
the next is, and I like how you said, every dollar has a duty.
Yes.
So that money that you save now, it's not just pleasure fund. It actually goes into the next investment. And
Yes.
then from that moment, again, you have your money allotted to your living and your expenses. And then the
Uh-huh.
rest is going to the next investment so that we can truly become our own bankers, have our money working for
Yeah.
us and growing for us. And how that all starts is current state and tracking. So I love it. I love that everybody who's listening is going to start tracking their financial
Mhm.
management or spending, and they're going to make sure they get that actual tracker from you today, because I think that will be of absolute value. So guys, if you don't have a tracker, make sure you're getting that from him today.
Yeah.
Absolutely essential. Whatever we track improves.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it leads to the other point too, where I work with clients who are doing pretty well from like an income perspective. They're making money every month or every year. Like they're even somewhat high paid employees or high paid business owners, but they never have any savings. Is because they're constantly, as their income increases, so do their expenses. And this is a situation for a lot of people. When their income grows, their expenses grow. And when you have a lifestyle like that, it takes away the pleasure of making more money. What's the point of making more money if If you make $5,000 a month and you spend $5,000 a month, and then you make $50,000 a month and then you spend $50,000 a month, you're in the same situation. There's really no improvement. So making more money is kind of pointless for you. So
Yeah.
if
So
you
it's
get,
the habit of how you're spending the money,
yeah,
which is important to change.
yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And it was Bob Proctor that said that, right? You can
Yeah,
earn $1 million and spend $1 million and still be broke. And you
yeah,
can earn $100,000 and spend $100,000 and still be broke. It's about the habits and learning to manage the money and build that relationship and give that dollar a duty. And I'm going to use that going forward. Give
yeah,
that dollar a duty, put it somewhere where it can work for you.
exactly. 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that. Amazing. So what final tips would you like to leave with the audience? Some no-brainers that they know they need to get in contact with you. Some final words of advice.
Yeah, so we mentioned the two, right? It's financial self-aware, tracking your numbers, and then also a third one, and this is true in entrepreneurship, right? Work with a mentor or work with a coach. It makes the biggest difference, right? When you have somebody who's kind of ahead of you at that point, who knows, who's been in your shoes, and who's done it, it helps from a financial perspective, working with a financial mentor, and it also from a business perspective, right? Working, like you said, you're in a mastermind, right? So working with people who are kind of and learning from people, it makes a big difference in your business and in your financial portfolio. And if you reach out to us, I can create a tracker for you and even make a video to show you how to use a tracker for free if you just reach out by going to thinkinglikeabank.com.
I love that. Thinking like a bank. So he said, get yourself into a room where people are having different
Yeah,
ideas.
yeah,
Okay. So we had a conversation with one of our coaches the other day. We were thinking about how much cash do you think a billionaire keeps in their wallet? And do they keep cash in their wallet? Just thought I'd throw that out there. That's an
yeah,
idea or a question that you wouldn't have in a room with people who aren't working on financial management and wealth. So do you have an answer for that, or what's your
yeah.
thought?
Yeah, I actually have a client who has a little bit over 100 real estate properties in the Chicagoland area and in a couple of the surrounding states. And I'm his financial professional, right? I see his portfolio, I see his accounts and stuff. And he's like, you know how he asked me, he's like, you know how much money I have in the bank? And I was like, I don't know how much. He's like, nothing. I have no money in the bank. All my money is in real estate and in other businesses. Because if I have money in my bank, it's not growing at all. It's being exposed to inflation, and I'll be tempted to use that money. I'll feel a little bit wealthy and I'll use that money. But if I have that money constantly deployed in different areas, it's always growing, and you kind of have that sense that you kind of like you don't have extra money. So that's in some situations that's a good feeling to have. And yeah, and to this point about a billionaire, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if a billionaire has very tiny liquidity, actually very tiny cash. It's probably, I mean, even actual billionaires that we know about, that we see on the news and see on social media, the majority of their wealth is in shares of the companies they own and in real estate. That's majority of the wealth. It's not like a billionaire has $1 billion in a bank account. It's far from that. It's most likely they own like 10% of a company, and that 10%, along with the real estate holdings they have, comes out to $1 billion. That's probably a more realistic example of somebody's financial portfolio.
And so I want you to think about that. You have money in the bank, but it's
Yeah,
actually not there. If you had $50,000 sitting in your checking account right now and you went to go take it out, chances are they're going to say you need 24 hours because they
yeah,
actually have that money invested somewhere else and
yeah,
it's making them money. So instead of having that money sit in your bank, where is it being allocated, and give that dollar a duty? I love it.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, you know, thinking like a bank, right? So you, like you said, you go to a bank, you deposit money into a bank account. The bank turns around, loans that money out, invests it in other real estate projects, development projects, mortgages, whatever the case might be. You could skip that part, right? You can skip going to the bank, giving them your money, and then not getting any interest at all on it, 0% interest on a checking account. Or you can go and then you could do exactly what they're doing, invest it into vehicles that grow. And I love real estate because it, for the most part, it's a hedge against inflation, along with other assets that we talk about on our podcast, Thinking Like a Bank. We talk about the use of cash value, whole life insurance, and other assets that grow regardless of market conditions. So I highly recommend that. Just because the stock market goes down does not mean that people's wealth goes down. A lot of people have backups and they have hedges against market risk that they could improve their money. They can make their money grow even when it's a down market.
I love it. So the first tip is get yourself a mentoring coach like this so that you can actually create a relationship with money, create your current state, design your future state, and he can help create the roadmap for you to get to that future state. So make sure you are clicking on the link below so that you can get connected, get that tracker, and truly set yourself up for financial success. So thank you so much for being on the show with us today. And just one more time, what's the website they can find you at?
Yeah, so it's thinkinglikeabank.com.
And the podcast
is also called Thinking Like a Bank.
Okay, guys. So are you ready to think like a bank? Make sure you check that out today. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Stay happy, healthy, wealthy. And remember, what's the best that can happen?